Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery preparing to check in on a pair of African nightcrawler worm bins. It's been 2 weeks since we checked in on them and gave them feeding 17, so today on feeding 18, well, we're going to sort of preemptively recognize their 200th day in service, which is really 5 days from now. These systems are 195 days of age, getting feeding number 18. So I'm going to get them up on the bench and we're going to get them fed. Let's get to work. So napkins are something that's been kind of piling up lately, and I really want to start doing away with my ever-growing inventory of them. Not too long ago, I think almost wiped out my entire collection of large leaves from my large napkins that I bring home from my mom's occasionally. But more recently, I've not been paying so much attention. I think it was even in yesterday's video where I even made direct reference to how I wish I was doing away with more of these things. And well, today each system's going to get 2. And well, let's see here, these coffee filters that we rested over the feeding zone to sort of mark where we last fed are in varying states of wear. This one here in bin number 2 is very worn. The one over here in bin number 1 is actually holding up quite nicely. Kind of making me wonder, even though I didn't bring down coffee in filters today, perhaps we could treat bin number 2 to a nice replacement, since its covering is not holding it together too good. You know, I didn't disturb the outer edges last time we checked in here, and I know I've been doing that in a few of my systems lately, but no need to let that carry on for too long. Figured skipping one interval, one check-in, and not disturbing the outside just sort of lets it sit for a little while without me messing with it. But I think there's a certain benefit to aerating the material, at the same time stirring in materials like some of this nice leafy matter that's out here on top. So you know, why don't we kind of replicate that process on all the outer edges before we dive down into the feeding zones. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of action down there. The stuff that I fed last time seemed like stuff that was going to go really quick. Some pretty fast composting foods. Well, I mean, from what I remember, there was still a couple items added that are going to take a little longer. Banana peels. So we'll definitely see leftovers of the banana peels, but I think all the other stuff they got were stuff like lettuce and stuff. No, you know what it was? Not even lettuce, sorry, it was soup greens. There was celery in there, there was the peels from regular old orange carrots, as well as the peels from those white carrots, the parsnips. Might have been onion, a couple other things, maybe even things that were all used to prepare a yummy soup. So yeah, especially since that stuff was all frozen, I would imagine that the majority of it, like I said earlier, with the exception of perhaps some banana peel that'll probably be left over. I think they might have, by now, 2 weeks later, done away with it. But you know, I've put my foot in my mouth so many times, I should learn to not predict or try to anticipate what happens in the worm bin, because a lot of times I don't get it right. Although it is kind of fun to sort of anticipate what you're going to find based on your past experiences. So definitely like the way this stuff looks. I like it even better now that it's been blended with all this nice leafy matter, kind of paving the way for them getting even more leafy matter. So I've got my box here on the ready, and well, 195-day-old systems at some point will start into what I refer to as foraging, which means no new bedding. So that would mean no leaves, no napkins, no nothing as far as bedding goes, and they would be left to fend for themselves and break down whatever residual bedding is throughout the system. And well, if we're really generous before we enter foraging, then there will be plenty of that floating around all over for them to utilize. So I was kind of gently making my way to the bottom of the feeding zone where we laid down, I think, chunks of newspaper and pieces of napkin and other paper products as the foundation for the bedding, and I don't see any sign of it, so that's kind of nice. I thought I might be pulling out large chunks of napkin or something, but perhaps the nature of the yummy foods that we placed right on top of it kind of turned the nearby bedding materials into a just as yummy food substance. Well, here, a piece of newspaper surfaced. I think some of that newspaper had been sort of folded over on itself and might have survived due to the fact that it was kind of like two layers up against each other versus perhaps other pieces that got gobbled up that might have only been one layer of newspaper. But considering that we were pretty generous with the bedding last time, I'm a little bit surprised to see that so little of it remains. I sort of expected more. But what we're seeing is a good thing, so I'm definitely not complaining. I'm actually very happy to see that they're making such good use of the lovely materials we've been giving them. So we're going to be pretty generous here with these napkins. As you can see, they're pretty big once you open them up, and they're, I don't think, even down to the last layer. I think if you were to fiddle with it, I think this is still even 2 layers, but they're embossed with this fancy pattern, so I think those 2 layers are so squeezed against each other that taking them apart would be difficult. But somehow it just feels too thick to be a single piece. These are definitely big, luxurious napkins. But we're not going to stop there. Let's break out even more leafy matter, because you saw how nice it was when we blended it in everywhere. I'd like to do that again. So I think we will top dress again, leaving nice leaves out on the surface for them. In addition to these leaves that we've already dropped in as foundations for the feeding. So the strawberry, some of that's pretty obvious and easy to identify. Some of this other stuff that we're seeing is peels of pear. And the stuff was frozen when my mom gave it to me, and I left it in the car overnight. So I was down here in the wormery yesterday when it hit me. I was like, oh my goodness, I left all that stuff in the car. Stuff my mom gave me, but I threw it in the freezer yesterday. It refroze. So this is like double frozen vegetable matter. Well, not even vegetable matter. Not all of it is vegetable matter, but some of it is. So here's the vegetable matter in addition to the yummy fruits. And this vegetable matter is like turbocharged, super fast breakdown stuff. These are the leaves of radishes, which in most cases are already kind of in an advanced state of decay when you even bring them home from the store. They're just so prone to breaking down quickly. Or at least that's what I've seen with the radishes from around here. And, you know, a little bit more coffee, because I'd like to use the coffee as my excuse to drop in a little bit of my worm chow on top of it. And makes me wonder, why am I being so careful? Might as well just empty this thing, right? Give them the whole of it, and you know what, before the worm chow goes in, throw some grit in here too. And even my worm chow, I've been so careful with it since it's running so low, but I got so many supplies with which I could make more that I really don't understand why I'm so careful about saving a little bit just for the next possible time I need some, prior to me getting around to making more. Ugh, don't want to become a hoarder. Not that there's anything wrong with that, if that's your tendency. I'll admit, I'm a little bit of a hoarder. Sometimes you'll find me feeding pieces of watermelon that have just been sitting in the freezer, waiting for that perfect time to be given to the worms. And you know, I had really thought that perhaps this piece of feeding zone indicator remnant could just be supplementary bedding as well down in the feeding zone. So it may not be all the way down in the feeding zone, but it's pretty darn close now by being submerged. because they're getting a nice new feeding zone indicator. The one that we had on bin number 1 was actually holding together quite nicely as well. So we'll let that one ride. So that was a nice fun check-in. Seemed to me like the worms were really enjoying that stuff on the outer edges from me not messing with it. Leaving that stuff untouched during the last check-in. Didn't really seem to make it become overly compact or anything like that. It was nicely occupied. It had some nice moisture level to it. And I've been doing that here and there in different systems, but on this particular occasion I just noticed it in the video from reviewing it last time, so I figured we'd definitely sidestep doing it again and give the whole system a nice aeration, nice blending into the leaves and all that other fun stuff. So that's it for the check-in, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now. I know. I forgot to put the top covering leaves on. Oh, I'm such an airhead. Usually if I skip a step and I'm already at the point where I've covered everything up, I'll usually not want to backpedal. What's done is done in most cases. No going back. But in this case, it seemed like, geez, how hard can it be just to fold the top coverings back, take care of the missed step, and leave the worm bins the way we want to, nice and pretty with leaves all over the top. All right, everyone, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Bye now.